In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you're under arrest. The Senate will decide your fate.
People move ahead, but then they get afraid, and then they stop moving ahead. And so you're...
Yes, welcome back. Recently, I posted this clip. I decided to take it down for reasons I can't say on this clip. Looking at what is going on, I don't know what exactly I can say. If you have not watched the clip, just take a look at the... I believe the consecutive media space is the only place we can have free speech. But I didn't know until Stephen Crowder did this video, bringing out the reality with what is happening. Though he didn't mention name, but now we know who he was referring to.
Point, Stephen, again, I think the most entertaining, talented person in the conservative movement, I think one of the most entertaining and talented people in entertainment generally in the country today, has created a very successful content generation company, a very successful production company. But Stephen's never had to create the company that actually distributes, markets, and monetizes all of that content. You know, he talks in his video about being one of the only true independent conservative voices. And I find that incredibly offensive. You know, Stephen, the whole time I've known him, has worked for someone else, has been paid by someone else. That doesn't mean other people tell him what to say. He's a very independent voice, and that's good. So is Matt Walsh. So is Candace Owens. So is Ben Shapiro. So is Michael Knowles. So is Brett Cooper. But Stephen, you know, as much or more than any of them, a very independent voice. But he's not exactly a self-made man. That's not true. He was paid by PJTV when I met him, which was owned by a billionaire at the time. Then he was paid by CRTV for a number of years, which was owned by a billionaire at the time. Then he was paid by The Blaze, which was subsidized by a billionaire, until Tyler Cardon, one of the real genius businessmen in our movement, turned the company around and made it profitable. During all of that time, Stephen drove a ton of revenue. He's incredibly valuable. I'm not suggesting that he wasn't driving value. He was. I'm only saying he didn't have to build all of that. He didn't have to think about it. And he didn't necessarily have to be profitable. And he doesn't know for a fact that he was profitable because, as he has said very publicly, all those companies, none of them really shared all the information about what was happening with them. So Stephen feels very certain that his show was always profitable, but he doesn't know that his show was profitable. And even if it was, what became of that profit? Most of that profit almost certainly was reinvested into growing the infrastructure and growing the technology and growing.
Jordan Peterson suddenly decided to abandon Stephen Crowder after his recent decisions. And this clip, it has gone viral recently where a lot of people are blaming the Daily Wire for this. Some even call out Ben Shapiro. We have been on this platform for some time. We will talk of censorship. But according to Stephen Crowder, he made it clear that some of these top people in the conservative movement, they are working with big con. I don't want to, let me use his exact phrase. They work with these big corporations, suppressing speech. According to this document that he released from it, you realize there are a lot of things you are not allowed to say, especially on this media space. So certain topics you are not allowed to cover. That is to tell you this is just in line with what big tech is doing. When I saw this clip, I realized a lot.
But what I would argue are immoral terms that actually punish conservative content creators on behalf of big tech. And that's something that I just couldn't unsee. And I want to let you know, it's not the exception. It's the rule. Kids out there coming up. We need to build a bench here in this movement. It's almost impossible. Don't sign these contracts. I now know what you are signing out there. I have the luxury of not having to. I don't have to be here. I don't have to say this. Please, don't sign this. Certainly not without professional legal counsel representation. Do not sign something that includes, let me go through this. Effectively, full ownership of all your social media platforms, channels, in perpetuity, the rights to your content, name, image, likeness, even the ones that you've built. Don't sign contracts out there that include multi-million-dollar penalties for different. Let me read you an example of what I mean. And this would be if it was me. If a creator fails to deliver a monthly content in any month or any of the quarterly content in the corner, including any and all ad reads, and by the way, all these contracts came with 3, 4, 5 ad reads per show, which would fundamentally change what this show is. Got to get those dollar bills. If I failed to do that, it would be a $250,000 reduction in fee per quarter. If, let's say, we did do everything per quarter, but annually maybe missed something, like let's say we went and did a Change My Mind instead of a daily show, which of course requires a lot more work, it'd be a separate $1 million penalty for that if you miss a single piece of content. And the amount of content required is not in line with, frankly, it's worse than Disney, it's worse than ABC, it's worse than NBC, it's worse than CBS. This is ownership of you and everything that you do. But here's, just to drive it home, don't sign something that has another $100,000 daily penalty if it's not signed off on beforehand. You get hit by a car, you have a sick day, you could lose $100,000 a day.
Yes, watching Jeremy, you realize he said some things that caught my attention on the clip you watched at the beginning. He said Stephen Crowder is not self-made. He has been paid by billionaires, big corporations in the past. So when he's talking like this video he did, he made some points that are offensive. When I watched all this clip from the Daily Wire, I realized something from that video. He said they never told Stephen Crowder or they will control what he says. He creates his shows without a lot of control. But watching Stephen Crowder clip, he says something contrary. But I think he said all that based on the papers he presented. Look into the contracts. If you don't create clips, old shows per month, or you skip some days, you'll be deducted this amount of money. That is just a way to make you understand that you have to work every single day. That is how I understand that point. If they don't put up laws like this, sometimes it can be disturbing. You're going to have people that will not be serious to put in the work. Every mission of a company is to make money. But from the Daily Wire, it shows they were even thinking paying Stephen Crowder $13 million a year. Stephen Crowder wanted $30 million. So they never came to a compromise. He decided that he would not sign these papers. Reason, you will see what is going on. Thank you guys. I'll be bringing you update pertaining to what is happening. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please endeavor to do that. And if possible, why not share this clip?
Point, Stephen, again, I think the most entertaining, talented person in the conservative movement. I think one of the most entertaining and talented people in entertainment generally in the country today, has created a very successful content generation company.